Penetrability also explains the situation where we see that the 4s orbital gets filled before the 3d orbital. Okay, and so if we look at the probability for the radial function for the 4s orbital, as shown here, right, and then we compare that to the 3d orbital, okay, what we see at this is that there's considerable penetrability of the 4s orbital with 2 pockets of electron density close to the nucleus before we get like the major region of electron density for the 3d orbital. And so for that reason, right, we see that argon has an electron configuration of filling the neon shell, right, with a 3s2, 3p6, right? And then so we would think, right, just on the basis of the principal quantum number, that the next electron for potassium, right, should go into a 3d orbital. But in fact, what we see is instead is the next electron goes into the 4s orbital, okay? And then, so it's not until scandium, right, when we filled the 4s orbital that we finally see 4s2, oops, I'm running on the side of the board here, so I'll put it down here, that we see the first electron go into the 3d shell, into the 3d orbital, excuse me. And so, again, the reason for that is that the 4s orbital actually has high penetrability compared to the 3d orbital, and therefore the 4s orbital shields the 3d orbital. And so when you're filling the, when you're looking at the relative energies of the 3s, 3p, 3d, right, they look like this, but the 4s orbital, right, is just a little lower in energy than that 3d orbital, okay? And so what we see, again, is this sort of situation where we fill out the 4s orbital before, for the atomic electron configurations, we fill out the 4s orbital before we start to insert electrons into the 3d orbital. But as we'll see when we look at ions, right, this sort of situation flips and we start to pull electrons out of the 4s orbital first. And that has to do with the effective nuclear charge and changing the effective nuclear charge when you start to remove electrons, for instance, from an atom. But we'll talk about that more in a later video.